Friends, welcome to this new episode. Today we are going to have a series of very interesting stories. The first will be divided into two, although both situations occurred on the same trip, returning from the north of Argentina to Buenos Aires. And I ask you to stay until the end, because the last story directly relates to the once tragedy which occurred in the year 2012. Remember that you can send me your paranormal story to the WhatsApp number that appears on the screen right now. It doesn't matter the number of audios, it doesn't matter the duration, and you can add all the material you think is appropriate to make your story as complete as possible. Then I will review everything you send me, and if there are any doubts, I will be contacting you. Of course, I invite you to my channel Who Was, where you will find a lot of really interesting stories. Anyway, I leave you in a pinned comment and in the description all the important links so you can locate the social networks, different channels and ways of contact. Friends, now we start right away with this new paranormal story. Enjoy it! My name is Facundo and I'm going to tell you something that happened to me, something tremendous, and that, without a doubt, changed my way of thinking overnight. In the year 2018, I had sold some industrial machines to the city of Oruro in Bolivia. And the sale not only included the transfer of this machinery there, but I had to install them and leave them in operation. Therefore, having dispatched everything, I organized some personal and work matters and left in my truck with my wife, who accompanied me to Bolivia. We had many miles ahead of us, and the idea was not only to make this work trip, but we had long wanted to get to know the north of our country. And this was the perfect opportunity, although of course we never imagined what would happen to us. It turned out that the trip there was perfect, visiting many places in the north. Then we went to Bolivia, we arrived in Oruro. I installed the machines, but what at first should have been resolved in just 3 days, due to technical issues and complications in the setup, I was delayed 8, which complicated matters a lot, because I had commitments at the factory and I was quite short on time, so we were not going to be able to visit all the places we had planned during our return. We left Oruro very early that time and started the return trip quite calmly. In the afternoon we were in the province of Salta. We stopped to refuel, rest a bit and eat. We were there for a couple of hours and then continued our journey. To top it off, we were being stopped at police checkpoints approximately every 50 kilometers, which made the trip much slower. But these are things that can happen and there's not much one can do about it. The trip continued as normal, and it was when we took the Tintin route where something very strange happened. It was night, so the darkness was total, and we see that a light passes quite close to our vehicle. Could I tell you? It moves ahead a few hundred meters and stays on the right side. I want to explain that the movement was with such fluidity that it was incredible to see it. We were both watching it with extreme attention. I slowed down quite a bit, and it was at that moment that this light split into a total of 3.
I don't know why, but I had a feeling like we're going to see something interesting there, and we keep moving forward. When we were about 12 kilometers away, the light illuminating us was placed up there. It opens into 3 lights, like that, the same situation as the trucks that open into 2. When they are closed, these open into 3. And I was most amazed looking. It was on the side of the road and 3 lights illuminating us, and these 3 lights that we saw. My feeling was strange because the light was strange. It was not a normal light, it was like a light between pale yellow, but powerful because it illuminated the entire inside of the truck's box. And it was far away. It wasn't the light of a truck, it wasn't the normal light of a vehicle. It was more powerful, but at the same time more dim. It didn't dazzle. We're getting closer, and when we were already near, I started to doubt if it was some lamp, some reflector of some factory, something like that. Well, when we got really close, it was a triangular ship with 3 lights on the bottom, which was about 15 meters from the side of the road and 15 meters high. The ship would be about 40 meters wide by 40 meters high. The ship was very tall, very wide, and very large. From the side, it looked very large.
We stood there in total silence, but with incredible awe, and it was my wife who spoke the first words. In the end, is everything you enjoy reading true? She said it because I've always been interested in the unidentified flying object topic, like any other advancement in science in general. So, you can imagine that witnessing this was a before and after. Because, in some way, with your own eyes, you verify that many things you see in movies, read in books or magazines, hear from different people. It's totally true, and until it happens to you, you don't become aware of it. But there's one more detail to add about that moment. Behind me there were 2 more cars that were just as astonished. We all feigned to brake, but the truth is that none of us had the courage to do it, let alone stay alone in front of this. In such a desolate area and during the night?
She wanted to take pictures, but the photos came out like some weird lights. You couldn't exactly see what the ship nor what we were seeing. It could be because it was night, because that ship was dark, it was black, and at night you could only see the lights. Continuing on the route all that night. On the right side we saw lights on the mountain, and well, we kept driving. And at one point, as we had already been stopped about 4 or 5 times, since we arrived from Bolivia, I see that about 100 meters away, that's already arriving in Tucumán. After about 2 hours of having seen the sighting, I see as if they make a light with a flashlight about 100 meters away. I started slowing down as I approached what I thought was another checkpoint.
I was slowing down, thinking at all times that it was a police checkpoint, and we came across something totally unexpected. There wasn't a light nor a vehicle with its lights on. We found that in the middle of the road there was a huge pig standing. But look, I don't want this to be taken the wrong way. It was an animal of a size like I've never seen before in my life, and look, I know quite a bit. It was standing, not moving, doing absolutely nothing in the middle of the road, and I emphasize again that its size was something impossible. Just like that it started to walk, it went into the bush and got lost. We started and it was about 150 meters or approximately 200. I see some people on the side of a bridge who were fishing, and I wanted to stop to thank them because I realized that they had signaled me with a flashlight, probably to alert me of the animal that was on the road so I wouldn't hit it. The thing was that I made a mistake.
On the bridge I said, well, thanks for flashing your lights, I say. And he says, no, we didn't flash you any lights, no. But seriously, thanks for the pig, right? What pig? They say. We didn't flash you any lights and there's no pig, they tell me. We don't have anything to neither internet nor anything to flash you lights. We didn't do anything to you. Well, thank you. I still tell you, and continue driving forward. And, well, there's the anecdote that when we returned to Buenos Aires, the biggest pig there is measured as 1.20 meters in height, and this pig that we saw was at least 1.70 meters in height. And it took up both lanes, so it was about 4 meters long. It was the strangest and most fun trip I've ever had in my life. And both cases were strange.
I'm Noelia Bueno. My story is not very strong nor very yes. It was moving at the time for me, but it's not a shocking story. Let me tell you, I had an ex-partner a few years ago, quite a few years ago. Well, he worked at a tattoo shop and he started meeting people at the tattoo shop. The shop had several employees. One did piercings, another tattoos. One of the guys who did the piercings, the guy was from Ciudadela. He's deceased. He died in the once accident in 2012. Well, he was a very good friend of mine and my partner's. From that moment, for reasons of life, well, my partner, then he opened his own tattoo shop and we never saw him again. Because the guy kept working for that place where he was working at that time, my partner. But we were very good friends with him, with his girlfriend. From that moment, we went everywhere, and then everyone went their own way. The year 2012 has already arrived. When the accident happened, we were both extremely shocked. When we saw his picture among the dead, we couldn't believe it. It was all very crazy because we couldn't believe that a person with so much life ahead because he was super cool. That friendly person, friend of all friends, that person with a spectacular character, we couldn't believe that he had died in the accident. We were super shocked. I remember we went to the wake. We were really bad for a long time, even though we hardly had any contact anymore. We weren't that close, let's say. Of going out everywhere and having followed each other. As had happened a few years before, yes, we were really upset about the situation. The thing is, I started to dream about him a lot. I don't consider myself a medium or gifted in anything because I don't have any special talents. But I just kept thinking about the boy. This Brazilian who the other day said that one has to develop it. When you realize there is something abnormal in one, I don't know if abnormal, but something strange. Well, this happened to me. I started to dream constantly, but they were vivid dreams, it is said. I think they call it that. When they are dreams that seem real. Because I vividly remembered the dream from the other day, which is unusual for me. And in the dream, in all the dreams, we were at a concert or we were at a bar or laughing, all the same people that we were at that time. And he always came up to me and said, "No, what happened to me?" I was left stunned, not knowing how to respond. I didn't know what to say. I always tried to avoid and run away from that situation. I didn't want to tell him in the dream that I didn't dare to tell him what had happened, that there had been an accident, that he had passed away, but I don't know why. He was always recurring. Once a week I dreamed of him, and he at the end of the dream would ask me what had happened. Until my mom, me, crying one day, I tell her the situation and she tells me, "My mom, that boy is not able to leave." So he is looking for a way to close. His story? Well, 6 months past that I used to dream about it regularly. And I always wondered what happened to me. And I ran away from the situation. I was leaving, and I would wake up in the dream. Like I was leaving, I don't know. There was a door, and I would go out the door to avoid facing the situation. One day, my mom told me that in my dream, I needed to tell him, "Look, you passed away." And well, I did it. After 6 months of him being deceased, in the dream, I don't know why, I told him he had passed away 2 months ago, but it had been 6. And I remember that his face was all hurt, always. I remember that his face in the dreams, always. He was all hurt, all scraped, like bandaged, with red eyes from my injuries. And well, I remember I asked him, "Do you know what happened? Did you die in the accident?" His eyes welled up with tears as he touched his scraped, injured hands. And he said to me, "Well, thank you for telling me." And he turned around and left in the dream. And after that, I never dreamed of him again. It was like the last time I dreamed of him. So yeah, the story was very crazy. The guy, well, one of the deceased. He was my best friend at the time, and then we separated our lives, but we remained friends in the story. It was good. They were dreams, more than anything. It wasn't something real. It's not that I saw it, but, well, there the story ended for us, for the one who was my partner at that time and me. Like, we ended up closing the story after those 6 months of not understanding why that had happened. And I think he did too. Was able to leave in peace.